because he was not getting the right kind of treatment. But I made those phone calls, and those individuals in all three of those offices stepped right up, and I got an email today saying that they're going to be admitting him in the next couple of days. That's what a representative is supposed to do. Not pull strings to do things that are unethical, but to try to connect the people who have lost hope and try to find out if there's something there for them to get as far as services. Many times there's not. But they want to know that they can call someone and someone will listen. Even if it's telling them no. I'm sorry, your problem can't be fixed by government. And many problems can't. But there are some instances where you can connect someone with what they need. And sometimes that's probably the most rewarding part of the job. It's not the pats on the back, it's not the awards that are given, it's the connecting people to what they need. And that's what it's all about. That's what a citizen legislator does. Because it's not advancing himself, it's advancing the cause of freedom, the cause of good policy, and the cause of lifting up Americans so that they can make those choices for themselves. And I've probably gone on quite a bit, but I appreciate the chance to come and speak to you folks.
I want to ask a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Somebody else want to?
Go ahead.
You know, you're talking about trying to help somebody get the medical treatment that they needed, and how poor and difficult it is in the 2nd District, especially in southeast Oklahoma.
Yes.
Obamacare will probably cause, I can't imagine that it won't do anything but shorten life expectancy of people in southeast Oklahoma, because they won't be able to get doctors there, they won't be able to get medical treatment. If you go to Congress, what will be your action items? What will you do to try to eradicate that as quickly as possible? Because we're talking really serious consequences for southeast Oklahoma. I mean, it's for everybody, but for that part of the state, it's really bad.
Well, it is. In fact, we've had that on the state level, trying to get doctors into these rural areas. It's very difficult because, first of all, they don't want to go there because the quality of life and the activities and quite honestly, the debt load that many of these doctors just out of college have. They need to be making money to pay off that debt. I think what the solution is not Obamacare. It's not socialized medicine. It's the free market. I was talking to a physician today, and he was talking about free market solutions are the key to allow us to have choices, because with choices you have options, you have more freedom. So I think that's one of the keys. If you start telling doctors and start rationing care, which is what would happen under mandated care from Obamacare, you would have less doctors because they don't want to practice. You would have less access to facilities. So I think the key is to allow the free market. Let's bring in, let's let individuals have more control. Let the doctor and the patient try to figure out what's best. Just today I was talking to a doctor that had a guy who's going to have a hernia surgery, which they checked around here, the local hospitals, and just the hospital charge was $900. Then you've got the surgeon, and you've got the anesthesiologist and all. And they said, well, let's look around. They were under what we have now. They were able to shop around and able to get that for under $400. But what happens is that people don't know that there's options out there. Doctors are having trouble because of the tort system. They can't afford the insurance for their medical liability. I've got a surgeon in Muskogee who's a supporter of mine who works until September to pay for his liability. And then he lives off the rest of the month. So we've got a lot of issues that we need to attack, and tort home is one of them. Try to get that under control, and if you can, bring down health costs, and then make sure we have access. It's cause individuals to take charge of their own health care. And I think that's the key. But And it's not just in southeast Oklahoma, it's all over the district as far as the entitlement mentality, where someone owes me something, or I can get it for free. We've got to try to change that. You can't do that legislatively, but you can help someone benefit themselves and with ideas that, hey, you can do better for yourself. You can go out and you know, all these folks that could be working that aren't, and are just collecting a check, we need to make sure that they're out working and making themselves productive in society.
You remember our conversation at the state convention?
I'm sure we had a couple of them, but you're going to have to refresh my memory.
There was one of the Obamacare bills that came up in the state, and you introduced it and then voted against it. And I asked you about that. You said your responsibility as a committee chairman was to introduce this legislation.
You were talking about OETA.
Oh, OETA?
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
It was
Okay.
OETA.
All right, now, and I still have a problem with that. And even if I accept that what you said is true, and I had no idea what the procedure is.
Okay.
You introduce it, you don't speak for or against it, but you vote against it.
Sure.
Now, okay, now the way I see that, and, okay, is I see a politician that's going out and telling one group, well, I introduced this, but it failed. Going out and telling the other group, well, I voted against this. Why should I have any confidence in the fact that you won't, because if you look at Michelle Bachmann, what she's going through right now, are you familiar with that? She has been crucified over this Muslim Brotherhood thing by Republicans. Whoever goes up there, whether you or Mark Wayne, either one, is going to get beat to death by the very people that are supposed to be on your side.
Sure.
How can you convince me that I can trust you to go up there and do it? I mean, all your, your business background and things you have or haven't done in the state legislature, that's great. But when you go up there, you're going to be facing people, the Republicans, that are trying to destroy our country. And when you do that on the LETA thing, I mean, if it's one thing, if you get up and say, okay, I introduce it, and you get it, then it comes time for debate, say, well, I had to introduce this, I'm against this, I am voting against it. But you didn't do that. That's a concern for me. Because we have enough people up there now, and we have 500, well, not 535 people, not all of them, but about probably 500 of them will do the very same thing. They're straddling the fence, telling one group one thing and one group the other thing.
Sure.
That's what's wrong with our country.
Okay.
And I see too much of that going on in the state, and you just flat told me yourself that you did that. That's a concern.
Well, let me explain what he's talking about. I chair the Administrative Rules and Government Oversight Committee. As chairman, one of the responsibilities is every board that's been created by the state legislature comes up for review every 4 years. Okay? It's not a bill that you request, it's just a bill that the committee, that is filed on behalf of the committee. Because those bills have to come forward to see whether or not those organizations will get an extension on their sunset review. We bring them in before session, we bring each committee, each board in, we talk about, okay, what are you doing with your money? These are most of them are non-appropriated. OETA actually gets some appropriations. It's one of the 2 or 3 that actually do. Most of the other boards are self-sufficient because of fees. So it came before our board, and we vetted it before session, and then it came in the legislative process. There were 26 boards that were created that had to come up for sunset review. Okay? Those bills had to be filed by the committee, and me as the committee chairman, they fell underneath my authorship. I had 8 bills of my own that were my personal bills that I filed. Those other bills were just bills that had to be filed through the process. OETA first came out, and we had the option this year, and I moved to extend it for only 1 year. Because personally, I didn't think it was a core function of government that we had OETA. 17 other states actually had privatized their public television, and everything worked fine. We passed, it failed, the 1 year failed. It was amended in committee by a vote to 4 years. Okay, so they recommended 4 years, that it would be extended for 4 years. Passed out of the House, went to the Senate, and died in committee. So now, OETA that board was gonna have a year to be dissolved. Well, it caused a big uproar on the Senate. They had to bring it back in committee, and they were able to pass it out of committee on the Senate side for 2 years, to extend it for 2 years. That's the way it came over. It's a little bit long drawn out, but we had to accept the 2 years in order for the bill to stay alive. So we accepted the 2 years just because I authored, that wasn't my request bill, that was a committee bill. I've been very consistent in voting against OETA. Not that I'm against Barney or anybody else cartoons there, I just didn't think it was a core function of government. I was actually going to debate against that. I respect the process, and I respect the decorum when you're told you're supposed to do something. I respected that. I was informed that it's not good to be the author of the bill and to vote and to debate against the bill. It's just not good protocol because it would allow a lot of folks to abuse the system. So I didn't debate against the bill. So I don't see a conflict in that. It was not my request bill, but because of the chairmanship of the committee that came forward, I'd been on record voting against OETA before.
Well, see, my problem is and it's not just you. It's just the way the system, I have seen this for years and years and years. We have politicians playing both sides of the fence. And this stuff is so screwed up and so convoluted. I mean, and when I see that, and I realize there's probably a lot I don't know, but that gives me an awful lot of concern.
Yeah, and without knowing the details behind that, it probably looked odd. That's why I think.
Well, odd's not the way I describe it.
Well,
it looks really bad.
Yeah. So without knowing, and see, and that's what I found out. Things are not as simple as they appear on surface. I know that Philip is very involved in the collegiate legislature, and he knows a lot about the rules and how they can certainly be difficult to follow as far as things are. But I've been consistent on OETA, and we talked about that, and I appreciate the question.
Well, and part of it, I guess when it gets down to the base issues, you talk about decorum and protocol. Decorum and protocol is what's wrong with our government. Now, I'm going to tell them to take their protocol and stick it, because if the system's broke, you don't just go along with it to fix it. That's what we need, is somebody's going to go up there and kick John Boehner right square between the butt and say, hey, we don't care about your protocol, we're going to fix government. That's what I want. I don't want somebody who's going to go up there and be nice and go along to get along. We have too much of that now. That's what my concern is somebody's going to go up there and put the brass knuckles on and start knocking these people around a little, politically speaking.
Sure, and I understand that. We've got some folks in the state legislature like that every hill's a hill to die for, and they become very ineffective. So you've got to choose your battles, so you can win the war.
I'm just curious, so at the end of the day, OETA, instead of being alive for 4 more years, has a process of winding down into. They're not going to die.
They're not going to die. They'll come up for review again in 2 years. What we were trying to do is balance out so that each year you have kind of an equal number of boards that would come up, because we don't really want 26 in 1 year again, so we staggered some of those boards, and we just had to pick organizations that we thought we would shorten them and bring them back again.
So the good news is their
Barney
life
is still alive.
expectancy. Yeah, but their life expectancy,
still on?
their life expectancy or their lifeline got shortened.
It
Which
did.
is, I agree with that. I don't understand, I don't even know what the history is behind funding the OETA or any of those other
Yeah.
televisions. But it's got shortened because of your efforts.
Right, and something else that we did with the boards is that we shortened it to 4 years, so that a senator in his 4-year term could see every board that was created by the legislature and have oversight over it. So.
Any other questions?
Yeah, with this recent news about the inroads of the Muslim Brotherhood into the government, and I find it kind of ironic that